Well, as schools open for the 2022 academic year in coastal areas of the country, some schools have been affected by severe thunderstorms, resulting in flooding, while others were looted and stripped of school infrastructure and technological gadgets. Now, this adds to the already existing challenges of infrastructure, learner material and school transport in provinces such as the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu Natal. We're now joined by Secretary General of the National Teachers Union, NATU, Cynthia Barnes, Eastern Cape Provincial Secretary of the South African Democratic Teachers Union, that's SADTU, it's Chris Mdingi, and Suid-Afrikaanse Onderwysers Unie, the Chief Executive Officer, Chris Klopper, is with us. So to all three of you, thank you very, very much for joining us and welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here.
Yeah, good. 2021, another very difficult year affected by COVID-19, even though it might not have been to the extent that we saw in 2020. So, I mean, the past 2 years, schools have experienced loss of lives, learning, and, you know, a time with schools closed to be reopened again due to COVID-19. I mean, let's just get an understanding. And if I can begin with you, Cynthia, what has your experience been like, your members? What has it been like for them?
Good morning once more. Maybe if you can go back to the 2019 as well, 2020 and 21, the experience was very hectic because the learners weren't going to school each and every day and they had to stagger. That on its own had a negative impact on the staggering system, where learners weren't getting the right learning and teaching experience. So our teachers were also not, some of them passed on due to the COVID-19, and then you find that they had to stretch taking other subjects of other teachers, and the learning and teaching did not go very well. So we are hopeful that this year, which is 2022, it will be the best year for the learning and teaching.
Yeah, and I can imagine that from all of your opinions, I mean, this has just been the greater opinion from everybody that it must now be back to school for all students and enough of this sort of on and off and on and off. I mean, is that what we're aiming for? Let me go to you, Chris Klopper.
Thank you for the opportunity. And indeed, we believe that last year the disruption wasn't as serious as in 2020. But there are still backlogs, especially with languages and mathematics, but not as serious as the previous year. And there's a definite yearning from all schools that we must return to normality as soon as possible, you know, always provided that we will be able to adhere to the safety protocols. Because the general feeling is that we can't afford another year of disruptions and losses of learning, because it may then lead to long-term, you know, negative implications for the schooling system. So our plea to the authorities is, let's get back to school as quickly as possible.
Yeah, as quickly as possible, and to get learners and bums into seats, because that's where kids belong. I mean, that's one thing I think we've learned throughout these years, is that, you know, kids don't belong sitting at home and playing in the streets. They belong in the classroom, learning and expanding their knowledge. Chris, let me ask you again. It's a very same and similar feeling that I've gotten from all the other guests. I mean, looking at the last 2 years, also wanting to ensure that kids are back in school. What is the view from you and, of course, SADTU?
Thank you for the opportunity. As SADTU Eastern Cape would like to state it clearly that any moment lost or time lost means a lot to us. And therefore, we really wish to echo what the other speakers before me have already alluded to, that any moment that goes by without learning and teaching taking place, it's a serious concern on our side. Therefore, we wish to see the year starting on a very high note, in spite of all the challenges that we are all aware of, and hope that going forward, beyond the month of January, there will be no hiccups anymore. Thanks.
I want to go into the challenges now because that's where we are. Obviously, we saw inland schools open last week. We're now seeing the coastal schools going back. So, Cynthia, let me come back to you. Let's talk about some of the challenges that are going to be faced right now, that are being faced by some of the schools that are under you.
The most challenges that are going to be faced by schools this year, maybe the coastal schools, is the underemployment of teachers. For example, we do understand that there were a number of teachers that were succumbed to COVID-19, and those teachers were not replaced, or maybe there were no substitute. So now, if maybe the Department of Education can employ more teachers, so each and every classroom, for example, in a primary school, where all the learners are going back in a full force. So if each and every classroom is having a teacher, that is what we as the National Teachers Union will applaud. We are concerned with still the staggering in the high schools, because those learners there in the high school, they still got a lot to catch up. Just imagine the ones that were in grade 11 last time, they still need a lot to catch up work that was supposed to be done in grade 11, as they're still going to be doing something in grade 12. So therefore, in order for all the schools, in order for the Department of Education to obtain the best results, we as the National Teachers Union will request them to employ teachers, as well as to see it that the mobile classes are there for the learners to be able to be separated accordingly in order for them to adhere to the social distancing, and then at the end of the day, the learning and teaching is in a proper way.
Yeah. Chris Klopper, Mr. Kloppers, let me just call you Mr. Kloppers. It's probably easier with two Chris's there. Mr. Kloppers,
No
good. In terms of admissions and placing learners, I know that these are some of the urgent concerns for the Department of Education as well. Let's talk to your concerns, and is that affecting your sort of teachers and schools as well, and some of your members?
Yes, undoubtedly, the question of registration of new learners, it's a symptom of urbanization. We identified problems in the Durban Pinetown area. Those schools are being, put under severe pressure. Then in the Eastern Cape, in the urban areas of East London and Kibega, there are problems there with regard to registrations. And then in the Western Cape, there are serious problems. They are battling with an influx of learners of anything between 15,000 and 20,000, and those schools are put under severe pressure. And in the Northern Cape, there isn't any problems in that regard. So in terms of registration of new learners, it is a problem, and there's a dire need, to build new schools as soon as possible in those areas where the need arises.
Had spoken to wanting to build schools more in the in urban areas in the cities, but I mean, is that what we need, or is it what you're talking to? I mean, more outlying schools that are actually needed in a very, very urgent manner.
As far as we could determine, the real need is in the urban areas. There's urbanization that we need to contend with, and then also there's the tendency of parents to place schools or to place learners in those schools that they wish to place the learners in, for example, quality schools. And let's be honest, there isn't a real difference between the quality of schools, but it's a perception. We need to address that particular perception and get the learners in schools and not, place them in schools where there isn't any place. Because the reality is that a school reaches a critical point where it is regarded as full. The sanitization can't carry, beyond a certain number of learners. It causes undue problems. It causes overcrowding. And that is why we need to address the question of perceptions, but we also need to build the schools in those areas where there's a dire need for them.
Yeah. Chris, let me come to you now, because this is a very important point as well. The damage from schools, particularly with these recent heavy rains in provinces like the Eastern Cape. I know KwaZulu Natal's also been affected. How bad is it?
The situation is really bad in the Eastern Cape. If one can take stock in terms of these damages, they date some as far back as 2013. Now, those that have just happened this year are rubbing salt in the wound, because schools in the Eastern Cape, most of them, which were tornado victims, are without roof till today, since 2013. Now, the situation is very ugly in the schools because learners would not have a roof over their heads as well as teachers. Then that will impact in a very negative way on teaching and learning. Hence, we are calling upon the authorities of the department to move swiftly, as we had a meeting even yesterday, telling them that, look, it cannot be a question of us being made to understand that there is an intention to attend to those damages. It would make sense more to us when there are clear timelines which are very realistic, because going beyond the month of January with such schools, it will be disastrous for the education in the Eastern Cape. Mm-hmm. So that's how bad the situation is in our province.
Yeah, and it's a very, very big concern because, you know, how many schools and learners do you think will be affected on this first day of back to school and the opening of schools?
I guess more than 59 schools have been. Then that means in terms of enrollment, it's a question of thousands that would be out a roof over their head. Yeah. So what made us to be very much concerned and to be on our feet up to act with speed in terms and arrest this particular situation in our beloved province.
Yeah. So, Cynthia, let me come to you as well. I mean, we talk about the flooding, we talk about the situation at schools that are really badly affected. From your knowledge, how many schools have been affected and learners that won't be able to actually go purely because of, you know, circumstances like vandalism or flooding or anything that has actually destroyed the schools?
Actually, as Mdingi has said, there are 59 schools. It might happen that there are those schools that we haven't yet identified. But as he has said, there are 59 schools that have, especially in Eastern Cape, that has been destroyed, as well as in KZN. There are some schools that have been destroyed by the rain and everything. So the number of learners that won't be able to go to school as we speak is a very huge number. Yeah. But let us hope that this will be resolved as soon as possible, and the department will see to it that those learners are having a place where they need to be taught. Because if the schools are being washed, or maybe if the schools are being destroyed, the learners can't go and work on those schools as well as teachers. So we are hopeful that an amicable solution will take place as soon as possible.
Okay, so that's 59 schools, and we're talking nationwide in the different provinces that have been affected by flooding. And so that's not just in one province, that's all of the schools, all the provinces.
Yes, in all the provinces. For example, there are also schools in Free State that were also damaged. Okay. So in total, it might happen that there are still more that we are not aware of. But there's a very huge number of schools that are being damaged by the rain, by the floods.
Mr. Klopper, I want to ask you very quickly as we get into this brand new year, and I suppose it is a good time to take a look at this. I mean, the curriculum. There have been talks to the fact that our children are not really being equipped with the skills to move into this new fourth industrial revolution, all of the technology that is around us. Teachers perhaps are not coping and navigating this quick changing world to prepare themselves and the learners, and are not getting enough resources from the department. Talk to us about those challenges of curriculum, and are we doing enough for our children?
I think there's a definite attempt to address those issues, undoubtedly. The core subjects that need to be addressed before you can get to anything like IT or let's say coding or robotics and that, is that you have to address the question of mathematics and you have to address the question of language. That is why you will find that learners do not perform well in subjects like, for example, accountancy. They battle with mathematics, because before you can start doing mathematics, you must actually grasp and master the language. So those are the primary areas that we believe should be focused on. And I'm convinced, that many schools are moving in the direction of IT, getting that under the knee, especially if we look at new subjects that will be implemented like coding, like robotics, entrepreneurship. I'm comfortable to say that we're moving in the right direction, And we need to move away from this perception, that there isn't quality in the public school system. I want to put it on record that if you look at the top public schools, they compare better almost than the top private schools. And that is something that we need to, instill in people, to address those perceptions, to say that quality you can find all over, and quality teachers, you will find them in any school. And as I stated, in terms of the new curriculum, new age subjects, I'm convinced that we're moving in the right direction.
Good. Happy to hear that. Chris, let me leave the final word with you because, I think what Mr. Klopper was saying now is a very, very important one. It brings to it brings to the fore what the pandemic actually did in terms of worsening the disparities between the so-called previously disadvantaged schools and the more privileged schools, and affluent schools as well. I mean, these affluent schools, the matric results are out today. We're seeing, 98% pass rate, if not more. Online learning went ahead. School was not affected. These children were managed to move ahead. And yet there is a massive portion of people and students that were not able to do this purely because the infrastructure is not in place. Let's talk to this, Chris, going forward in terms of, what we can do and what your views are for the matric results coming forward tomorrow that are going to be released. Not tomorrow. I think when are they coming out? Are they coming out tomorrow, the matric results? Tomorrow, yeah. So Chris, talk to me about that.
I guess it's true what you've alluded to, that the inequalities have been exposed once more by the pandemic. And really, as SADTU, we've been making this call that it's unfair in a way to compare the results of the schools in the rural areas, townships, with those in most affluent areas. Reason being that are not the same at all. The previously disadvantaged continue to be on the end. But that is, we are saying, to given more dedicated workforce, the all in of more classes, holiday classes, because they are trying to push hard to get these results. And we are a positive come tomorrow, in spite of all what I've said in a negative tone, which is to say that the situation of our schools who were previously disadvantaged seem to be perpetual. And the redress of the imbalances of the past seem to be moving at a very slow pace. Then if our government can address that adequately, definitely the comparison of results would be a fair comparison, unlike current implementation, because our view is that comparison is fair at all.
All right. I'm going to have to leave it there, Chris. Unfortunately, the connection is quite bad, but I think we definitely do have your point of view there, and we thank you very, very much. Apparently, apologies for that connection that seemed to be just coming and going the whole time. So that was Chris Klopper from the Suid-Afrikaanse Onderwysers Unie talking to us. He's the Chief Executive Officer, also the Secretary General of the National Teachers Union, Cynthia Barnes, and Eastern Cape Provincial Secretary of the South African Democratic Teachers Union, Mr. Chris Mdingi, talking to us there.